Hello and welcome to episode 1 of the Premier League Trio Weekly Show. This is a brand new show where we're going to be previewing all the week's fixtures, and we'll be releasing it every Friday just before the game week. And it's so exciting because I've got two brilliant guests with me. Let's start with Hass first, my brother. You guys probably haven't seen Hass very much, but Hass is actually the editor, the producer, the man behind the computer who's basically put everything together. So it'd be good to get him on more regularly. Hass, how are you doing today, mate?
I'm good. I'm really looking forward to the season coming back again. So yeah, it's been ages since I've been back on the pod. It was Lee Judges the last time that I was on. So definitely looking forward to getting back behind the mic again. So yeah, and
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And you guys probably are getting used to seeing my good Irish friend in the bottom over there, Kieran, and he's going to be so much more involved in this show. He will be the third person in the trio. Obviously, my other brother, Hamza, will be coming in and out, but Kieran will be a permanent fixture. So Kieran, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm just waiting for that "here we go" tweet to go out, and then we'll be all good. But yeah.
Paulie tried to steal that the other day, but
I know he did.
Oh, it's so sneaky.
But yeah, excited for the season to start. Obviously, as United fan, we have to wait another week, but can't wait for football just to get back again.
Absolutely. And just before we go ahead and do our show today, guys, please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. We need to get this video out to way more football fans, not just United, not just Arsenal, as obviously Hass is an Arsenal fan, but as many Premier League fans as possible, because this is a Premier League show. We're not just going to be focusing on the big sides, we're focusing on all the big news stories throughout the game week. So without further ado, guys, let's start off with the top 6 predictions, because I think this is a great place to start. I'm usually really bad at this because my problem is that I'm a massive, heart over head sort of guy. So, I look at United before the season and always think, you know what, United are going to do great this year. I've done this for the past 7 years. I mean, Hass will remember this, won't you, Hass? When Louis van Gaal came in and had that wonderful summer, you got Di Maria, we got Falcao, we got all these players. And I said to Hass and my brother Hamza, we're going to win the league. We came, I think, 5th or 6th or something like that. Pretty bad. So, but look, guys, I'm going to start with the champions. Who you think is going to be champions? We'll go one at a time. So we'll go champions. We'll say why. Look, for me, you can't look probably further than Man City. I just think that although they haven't got all their transfers in, they've obviously brought Ake in for 41 million. Some people laughed at that, but I honestly think that's a sort of transfer which will turn out to be good value. He can play at left back. Myself and Kieran have both had this discussion. We expect him probably to play left back. The looks like Koulibaly is not far off coming in. That's their defensive problems sorted. And then, look, they've addressed their wing position. I know that Sané's left, and that's a big loss for them, but they didn't have him last season. So you can't really say that was obviously a massive loss for them last season. But Ferran Torres is someone that is very, very talented. He might take some while to settle, but I just can't see past him. I think the issue for me is that Liverpool aren't really investing in their squad. They're not improving on what they got. And the saying is, as Fergie says, if you don't improve, you stand still, you regress when everyone else goes forward. I think Chelsea will close the gap. I think United, if they get their signings, will close the gap. But I just can't see, sort of beyond City, guys. So I'll go with you first, Hass. What's your predictions for the champion?
No, I agree. City are one of those teams that once, in terms of their distance from the title last season, I think it was 20 points or so. I think they're going to come back a lot stronger this season. If they get the Koulibaly deal over the line, I think their defense is sorted. Like you said, Ake can play in the left back position, which I think he's quite a versatile player. So he can also play in the left centre back position if needed. Obviously, Ferran Torres has come in, and he's a brilliant prospect for City and for even just squad depth. Their team, I mean, they can put two City teams out, and they would beat majority of the Premier League. So you can't put it against them not challenging at all. I think they'll be definitely up there. And like you said, with Liverpool and with them not signing anyone, I think squad depth has become so important in the Premier League. And if you don't have that, it's very difficult to keep up with those who are able to rotate players just like that. So yeah, definitely City.
Yeah, I agree, man. I couldn't really add more to that. And Kieran, are you in agreement with us, or are you thinking perhaps, God forbid, Liverpool might retain the title?
I think Arsenal are going to win now.
Yeah,
yeah, I think.
Don't give us hope.
Yeah, I know. I think City will probably do it. There's a couple of reasons. The number one is it's really hard to retain the title. It's the reason you see a lot of teams not being able to do it. Even the great City teams in the last kind of decade, they seem to be able to win one and then slip off the next year and then come back stronger the year after that. Really, it's hasn't been since I think it was probably the Fergie teams and the Mourinho teams that you saw teams win the titles back to back. Also, it's been for that Liverpool squad, which isn't the biggest, and being involved in the amount of games they have, it's not going to be conducive to actually being able to win a back-to-back title. What you said about the signings is what I was thinking. You see City improving in all different areas. You're seeing them bring in, if Koulibaly came in, that's kind of with Ake, that kind of fixes their defensive issues. Yes, Sane's gone, but like you said, Hader, he wasn't playing last year, so it doesn't really matter. David Silva's gone out, but they still have Bernardo Silva or Foden to come in. You have Ferran Torres, who I think was a phenomenal player. He's probably may have left Valencia a year too soon, but again, with the troubles they were in, there was nothing else that was going to happen there. The one thing that I always think of is that you never stay the same. You either progress or you regress. So if Liverpool don't bring in someone like if they brought in Thiago, then I think this is a different conversation. And I think I'd probably be saying Liverpool probably pit for the title. But right now, I think you can't really look past Man City.
Tell the listeners a bit more about Ferran Torres, because I know we've had a discussion weeks ago when he signed. But what sort of player is he? Because he should probably stay another year, but obviously with Valencia's problems. But also, you look at the talent he's got. I always thought he was destined for Barcelona or Real Madrid.
Yeah. So the one thing is, I have a lot of friends that live over in Valencia, and they were telling me for the past, I think it was 2 years, about him to watch him. So like over here, we used to get the La Liga was on every single week. So every Sunday we'd watch it. And one of the things is he's the one that sticks out because he's a very skillful player. He's very quick. He's not going to be one of those players that'll burst past you like Sané, but he's deceptively quick. And the issue he might have in the first season is he doesn't have great upper body strength, which could be a little bit of a problem in the Premier League. But that's why I said maybe a year too soon. But again, there was rumors back in January that the likes of Chelsea and United were going in for him. So the fact that City got him at the price that they did, even if he was there to play in cup games and to play in some of the smaller games, it's going to be very similar to that first season when Bernardo Silva came to City. Didn't get to play all the time, but when he came on, you saw his quality. And I think you're going to see the same thing with Ferran Torres.
Yeah, no, I agree. Sorry, guys, my mic was on mute. No, I agree with that. I just can't look past them. I think, look, my second place will be Liverpool. I don't think you can look past those top two. I think people need to be realistic, is that those two are so far ahead that it's just inconceivable that the teams behind can make up and swing that 30 or 20 point gap. You're obviously 30 with Liverpool and 20 with City. And look, for me, let's not discount Liverpool. I'm seeing a lot of people discount Liverpool, and it pains me to say, but they're still a fantastic side. They haven't really got weaker. That's the point. They're another year together as well. So they know each other very well. There's not going to be any of that bedding in period with any players. It's not like they've gone and brought in someone, let's say like a Thiago. You don't know. They might do. If they do, like you said, Kieran, I think it's a different story. I think he is that good. You could say they are favourites. That's how good Thiago is. But for me, people are sleeping on them a little bit because that front three is probably the best around. You can't argue with that. I don't think Firmino's as good as everyone's saying, but certainly their two wingers are excellent players. They've got a very strong defense. They've got the best defense in the league. They've got a top keeper, best centre back in the world, two excellent fullbacks. They're still going to be a force next season. So that's kind of what I'm thinking. I mean, Hass, do you agree with that, or do you think they're actually going to drop off a little bit, and you might see the cracks starting to appear? Because they're quite an old side. Remember, when Klopp joined, that's 4 years now they spent together. You could say that, and you look at their side, it is nearing towards 30. I definitely think that they're not far away from having to rebuild again.
No, I agree. I think their team is definitely at their prime. I think a lot of their players have really hit the ground running in the last couple of years. I mean, you got Wijnaldum. I mean, he was playing for Newcastle only a couple of years ago, and all of a sudden he's now hit his stride in in a Premier League winning team for Liverpool. Look, I think with Liverpool, you can never count them out of even challenging. I think they still will be up there. It may, it will still be a 2-horse race. I don't expect City to just completely run off with it at all. I think if you look at City last year, I think there was a mentality issue there. And Hader, we've had this discussion before, is when Pep's entering his last couple of years, there is a bit of tiredness within the team. And, you never know this year what can happen, obviously, with a very much more, a more condensed season, because obviously with COVID and everything, you can never count out Liverpool. I mean, they are ruthless whenever they play. Last season, you saw it. I think towards probably the tail end of the season, they did slightly dip, but that's obviously because they had just won the title. I mean, who would have thought that Arsenal would have beaten them? So it'll be an interesting one. But no, like Kieran said, I think if they were to get someone like Thiago, I think it would be a very different story. But no, I think second place is probably right for them. I don't think they'll get any lower than that, personally.
Yeah, I agree with that. Kieran, talk to me about who you think will finish second, and who you think are going to finish third. Let's change up the order a little bit.
Yeah, so just to go on to the second, obviously there's Liverpool. I think the main reason why I have it there is, injuries aside, if they got an injury to the likes of Trent, then I think all bets are off, because he's probably their most creative player, and a lot of their attacking players really rely on Trent and Robertson's supply to be able to get those goals. But the other thing that was interesting was today was the African Cup of Nations was announced to happen in January and February. So if you have the likes of Egypt going far with Mane, or with Salah being out long, or if Mane gets far in it, Liverpool could be without their two best players for a good 4 or 5 weeks of the season, which really that's enough for you to lose the title. So that's one of the other reasons why I had them second. When it comes to third, this is where it's tricky.
It's a tough one.
Yeah,
this
is the head and the heart. And I was going through this today, and obviously for me, it's between Chelsea and United. When you look at what Chelsea have done this season, or in the transfer window, it's outclassed probably every team in Europe. But then you have to think of how good is it to have whatever it is, 7, 8 new players to come into a team, and still I don't think anybody's left. So the issue that, other than Willian for free, but when you don't have players that have left, when 7 or 8 new players come in, that can leave a little bit of unrest, where players from before are basically being told they're not good enough yet. They're still going to be around the team. So depending on kind of what goes on the last bit of the transfer window, it's kind of a little bit up in the air. The reason why other than being a United fan, the other reason why I've gone with United third is that if you look at the way United played towards the end of the season, I think they played better football than I saw Chelsea play throughout the whole season. The difference was that they were just more consistent than we were. It's basically because of how bad we were at the beginning of the season. I'm not sure how it works out when you bring in 7 or 8 players at one time to get them to gel together. I've seen it in so many different sports where people say that these super teams are going to start, and it never seems to work out that first year. So I think with Chelsea, they might lack a bit of consistency this year. So I think I'm going to have United coming in third.
And Chelsea fourth?
Yeah.
Okay. Haas, third and fourth. Who completes the top 4 for you, mate?
It's got to be Arsenal third. No, I'm joking. I think,
do you know what? I agree with Kieran. I think one thing I would want to say is, obviously, Chelsea have had a fantastic transfer window. They bought 3 players who, even getting one of Havertz, Ziyech, or Werner, I'd be, very happy with.
Yeah,
but then again, you look at United, for example. Their team they've been playing together for the past year or so under Ollie. Bruno has solidified himself as a main leader of that team. You would think that in terms of sort of the creativity and as well as their time together, they would be able to, the football would be flowing a lot more. And in terms of their, being able to break down teams, I mean, they were doing it towards the end of the season. I think Chelsea will have a little bit of a tough time adapting all of the players that they bought into the team. they've still got defensive frailties. I know obviously they bought Chilwell for 53 million and they bought Thiago Silva, but I still think not having, even a reasonably good backup defender like, they were Christensen and they've got Rudiger, I still think there will be issues there in defense. If Thiago Silva gets injured, they will have issues. Obviously, they've got an absolutely ruthless attack, but personally, I think United will be third just because I think of the consistency. I think you look at Chelsea at the start of the season last year, they were brilliant, but then they hit that very, pretty much hit a rock and just, dropped significantly. And you look at how United came back and actually battled for third, bearing in mind they were about 15 or 16 points behind them, shows that United have it in them to at least battle for third, even if it means they've got 2 or 3 players, because at the end of the day, all they need is a Sancho, and all they need is, personally, I think, a centre-back. And I think they're at least up there or getting closer to the top 2. So, yeah, I agree with Kieran. I think it will be a third place United, and I think fourth with Chelsea. But it'll be very, very close, I think.
Yeah, I think you both echo sort of my thoughts. Look, it's a difficult one because I think, as you guys have said, Chelsea have had the best window. There's no doubt about it. To have that rebuild in that window in the COVID times is phenomenal. Phenomenal ambition, phenomenal, negotiation skills as well from Marina. She knows, look, it is a buyer's market, and this is what people are not understanding. If United actually came across Dortmund and they had money problems, United would be getting, he would be a United player right now, Sancho. The thing is, Bayer Leverkusen had money problems, and that's why they got, obviously, Chelsea got him in a great deal. But looking at the money they spent, 50 million on Werner. Werner, without the release clause, was probably an 80 million pound player. Ziyech is definitely a 50 million pound player. Havertz, again, I think they've got him for a good price of 70 odd million, I think. 70 odd million euros, I believe it is. So, they've done some fantastic business. I think, look, again, people are sleeping on United. They think that, they've only just signed Van der Beek. By the way, Van der Beek is an extremely shrewd signing. Me and Kieran have had the discussion, obviously, on this. Van der Beek, people are complaining, TalkSport, because they don't know anything. They're complaining, why are United buying Van der Beek? They've got McTominay. Or why are you buying Van der Beek? Because you need a defender. Listen, me and Kieran know this. Bruno can't play 60 games. Pogba can't play 60 games. You cannot afford to be having Pereira, Lingard coming in. He's a phenomenal signing. He's the sort of depth that City have. That, when Bernardo doesn't play or De Bruyne doesn't play, they still can bring in Gundogan, who's a very good player. So this is a depth you need to be up there with the best. But I think United do need to buy a few more players. Where I think United will profit is the fact that Chelsea do have to integrate and bed a lot of players, like you guys both said. I'm going to say United third, Chelsea fourth. If Chelsea had a more experienced manager, they'd be challenging for the title.
Yeah,
that's what I think, and that's not a slight against. I'll let you go have a word, Kim. That's not a slight against Lampard. Look, he's done a good job, but people are overblowing. I mean, I have a good friend who's a Chelsea fan. If he's listening to this, he knows exactly who he is. And he said to me earlier on in the window, maybe about a month ago, I think I told Hass this. Lampard is going to be like up there with Nagelsmann. I'm like, how can you make that assumption? He brought out Nagelsmann's first 2 seasons in management. I said, mate, Nagelsmann's going to be the best of his generation. Lampard has got the job because of who he is. There's no pull to this. Lampard, look, he's done a good job getting top 4, but he's been back. There's no excuses. You've got to challenge for the title. Chelsea have to challenge for the title next season. They don't have to win it, but they have to be within single-digit points come March. Go on, Kieran, have your last word.
Yeah, just there on Lampard as well. Like, a lot of Chelsea fans were saying, how great he was at Derby, but at the end of the day, he didn't get them promoted. Like, he lost in that promotion final. But based on Chelsea, the 2 things that I would say, the first one is what Haas said, is the defense is still very shaky. There's a reason why Thiago Silva was available for free. Like, PSG have the money that they could have kept him, but they decided to move on. You also have, it's really, their defense isn't going to get fixed from bringing in Chilwell and Thiago Silva. There's a lot of issues. They're one of the worst defensive teams last year. That's not just personnel. That's the defensive system they're playing. And if they don't change that, it's going to continue to reek goals. And that's the issue. And then the other thing is what even Lampard came out and said today about how he wants them challenging for the title. There's a lot of pressure on this rebuild now, where they've gone off and they've spent a lot of money on a lot of players. If it hits Christmas and they're not in that top 4, that pressure is going to build up. And when pressure builds up like that, you tend to do worse than what you would expect to do. So that's why it's hard for me to pick Chelsea going into the top 3, to be honest.
Yeah, fantastic points. I do agree with that. It's all about the start. It's all about how quickly the players bed in.
Yeah.
But again, the defensive problems haven't been sorted out. And I mean, I've had conversations with Chelsea fans saying, "Oh, it's the personnel so bad." They're not all terrible players. They're not that bad. They're conceding 58, 59 goals a season. That's awful. That is a tactical problem. That's a coaching problem. That's a system problem. So
that's a relegation type.
Yes, yeah, exactly. So let's see how they do. I think, look, you can't look past how brilliant their business has been, and they're going to be up there if they can sort out defensive problems. Okay, let's go 5th and 6th. I'll go first, and we'll go Haas, and we'll go Kieran. Look, this one's a difficult one because I think that if Arsenal get, let's say, Aouar, let's say they get Partey, they get the players they want, I think they're challenging for that 4th spot. But I just don't see how Arsenal can afford to go and spend 60 million on Aouar. I'm having a French journalist come on Saturday for the podcast, and we'll release next week. So we're going to have a conversation about it and see how far Arsenal are along in that. But Fabrizio did say today that, Chelsea, Arsenal offered Guendouzi and Lyon want the money. But look, Tottenham are one that are very, very interesting for me, because I think if I look at all their signings, look at Højbjerg, you look at Doherty, and there's one more, isn't there, that Tottenham have signed? Is there one more?
No, I think that's the only 2.
Okay. Well, anyway, so they've signed 2 very solid players. Ones that I'm very, very surprised that other teams went in for. Doherty's been one of the best right backs or wing backs in the Premier League since Wolves got promoted. He's always an attacking threat. He's solid defensively. Me and Kieran were talking earlier that Doherty plays right back when he plays for Ireland, and he's solid there. I just think that when you're upgrading Serge Aurier, that's great business for 15 million. Then you look at Højbjerg, it's another player who really, really flourished under at Southampton under Hasenhüttl, and I just think he's a player that he's exactly what Tottenham need. They need a player to come in there, to sit there, to break up play, to provide energy in midfield, to allow the likes of Lo Celso to look forward, the likes of Dele Alli to be able to play forward without worrying what's behind them. Maybe even Ndombele if he gets his act together and gets into shape. Look, they're going to have a strong side. The issue is always, and Kieran, you can elaborate on this for me more, but as you said earlier on, like, how many chances are the likes of Kane and Son going to get? Look, Mourinho, I think, is going to do things that are going to surprise people, but I think they're probably going to come 5th. Sorry, Hassan. It's not because I don't think Arsenal are good and haven't improved. They have. Arteta's, my views on Arteta. I think he's honestly, but he's better than Lampard, and you could argue potentially, like, he could be better than Oli in terms of his tactical acumen. I think he's very good at that. He's got a system that works. He's tightened Arsenal up in the big games. That left side is working beautifully with Aubameyang, Saka, and Tierney. That's very strong. You need to find something similar on the right, but I can't see that on the right. I can't see those synergy or those partnerships. I don't know. Maybe Willian can be there, but you don't have a right back yet. I think obviously you might get rid of Bellerin, but that's a hole in your team, and you need a right sort of midfielder as well. But I think Arsenal probably comes 6th, closely pushed by Wolves, who have done some great business. So Hass, I'll give you the floor. Who are going to come 5th and
6th? No, I think you made some good points there, Hader. I think it is very difficult to predict where Arsenal will finish this season. We were 3rd last season towards the start of it, and we ended up finishing 8th, and we were 14th at some point. So, it really depends on which personality or which personnel we actually bring in this season. I think obviously there are reports that we are in for Aouar, and I think that one would be probably more likely to happen than the Partey one, just because there could be an installment agreement rather than us paying it all up front. In reality, we have, I'd probably say, a better chance of finishing 5th than Tottenham, just because I think Arteta has brought a very different mentality to this team. You see the word being thrown around about family, which was the thing that Arteta wanted, to bring the fans and to actually bring the players closer together. And you've seen that. I think it's a massive coup having Aubameyang staying on a 3-year contract potentially, and getting Gabriel, which is, the thought of having him even close to the Arsenal team, even before the transfer window started, was gone. I thought he would have probably potentially gone United if there was any chance United going in. So look, I think it is a rebuilding process. I think with Arsenal, people, people are very impatient. If you look on Twitter, everyone's very impatient and want things now. As football fans, you want, progression to happen as soon as possible. It is a waiting game. You need those 2 or 3 players to bring in to create a spine in midfield. For example, a Party for us would be brilliant, but you got to be realistic. And I think the highest that Arsenal would finish is 5th, potentially touching 4th if we can get the right players in. That's only if we can get the players in. If not, I think 5th. I think we'll finish above Tottenham. Even though Tottenham have made some very positive signings. They also have got Joe Hart, by the way. I forgot about that.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Yeah, Mr. Head and Shoulders.
That's a very important sign. That's the best one they've made yet. So I think look, there are positives coming out the team. Obviously, we can hope and pray that we have a positive start. But yeah, I think Arsenal 5th, and I wouldn't count out Everton, getting close to the top 6. I think they have a very good chance of getting in. Mum's here.
Hello, Mum. We're doing the podcast.
Yeah. Okay. No. Yeah. Like I'll cut that out anyway. That's fine. But yeah. No. Like I was saying, I think Everton have a very good chance of potentially even battling for the top 6. I think Ancelotti's a brilliant manager. I think, like I said, managerial pull is something which he has done. He's brought in, Decore, he's brought in Alan, he's brought in, James, with 3 brilliant players. So yeah, I'd probably say Tottenham for 6th, but I wouldn't count out Everton, and Arsenal 5th.
Yeah, that's a great summary. Gabriel is one that myself and Kieran have spoken about a lot on various United shows, and he's a player that Kieran knows I wanted. But I think he could do well in the back 3. But if you're going to have Saliba, him, and David Luiz, that's a very, very inexperienced back. Well, 2 of them are very young. They've never played Premier League football, and then they've got the guy in the middle who is not as bad as everyone says, David Luiz, but he's not exactly,
he's injured now.
He doesn't feel your confidence.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was looking for. So go on, Kieran, give me your 5th and 6th place.
Yeah, I don't think Haas is going to like me very much here. But my 5th one, purely because I feel like they might be the most consistent team that's next would be Spurs. It's always something with Mourinho. He gets the best out of his team in that second season that he's there. Now, granted, he was only there for a little bit, and I don't think they played that well under him until very late into the season. But again, I can see kind of the base of that Tottenham team being a very strong. You have a strong midfield and strong defense, which is where Mourinho kind of bases his team out of. The signing of Doherty is kind of the type of player that Tottenham would need. Personally, I think it would have been better if he had signed for them when Pochettino was the manager, because he's the exact kind of wing back that you want for an attacking side. My biggest thing is I think it'll be very similar to when United finished second, that they finished second, but nobody really didn't know how they finished second because the football was so bad, and it was more of kind of winning kind of the 2-1, 1-0. I can see the same thing with Tottenham is they have the good players up front. You have Lucas Moura, you have Kane, you have Dele Alli, you have Son, who are all good in their own right. It depends if that team can come together. And for one season, I think they probably can, but I don't think it's going to last too much longer than that. Like you were saying before, some of the signings they brought in were very strong, except for Joe Hart. And if he has to play a couple of games, I think I'm gonna have to change this, and then I'll have to give him 10. But yeah, for now I'm gonna say that. And then 6th, 6th is probably the team that impressed me most last year, and that was Wolves. I think that attacking wise, they're one of the teams that when United aren't on, they're one of the teams I like to watch. They've brought in more talent again from Portugal. I think I put a tweet out there. It's like FC Porto are trying to get into the Premier League through Wolves. But I just like the way they play. They have a good defense. They don't give away too many goals. They can change the way they play based on what teams that they come against. If they need to counterattack you, they have Traore to use there. We saw that happen when they played against Sevilla in the quarterfinals, scored a very early goal from that. But also, if they're the team attacking, you have now the striking options to kind of come on. You have Jota, you have Jimenez, you have Fabio Silva, who just came in from Porto, and you have, I think somebody else came in today, Vitinho or something like that. And I think they're still interested in more attacking players. So with the way they're set up, I think they're probably the most kind of ready team to get into that kind of 5th and 6th. The only reason I think I have Spurs ahead of them is I think they might just be a little bit stronger this season.
Yeah, great roundup, mate. And let's move on now, because obviously we're halfway through the episode. We've got so much to get through. But who are your dark horses for the season, guys? So I'm going to start. And what I mean by dark horses, we're going to focus on teams. Which team do you think is going to exceed expectation and surprise us? And I've had to think about this because there's some very obvious options. You know, I'm sure you guys will pick them, and so I won't mention them. But for me, it's actually Newcastle United. And the reason why I think that is because actually when you look at the way that Steve Bruce came in, you remember Rafa Benitez, obviously an excellent manager. Newcastle had a very good manager who, if they'd backed, they could have been challenging for the top 6. That's how good Rafa Benitez is. And when they lost him in those circumstances and they brought in Steve Bruce, everyone thought, oh no, this is not going to end well. You know, unfortunately, it's not like Brucey's got the best record as well. And you just thought this is one of those where they're going to bring him in and he's just going to steady the ship. Initially, it was a little bit of a struggle, but he got a system in place. They were solid and they beat teams like Chelsea, 1-0 obviously at St. James's Park. And they ended up finishing, I can't remember where it was, but it was out, obviously clear of relegation and near the middle of the table. So for me, when I'm looking at them as well, I think they've bought really, really well. I look at Jamal Lewis, who was linked with Liverpool. I think that's a fantastic signing. I think there's a lot of teams around the Premier League that could have done with a signing like that. Maybe even Chelsea could have got him. He was a lot cheaper than Chilwell. And then you look as well at Callum Wilson, for me, is going to be probably one of the best signings. We'll go on to that later. I think that's such good business. I think he's someone that had such a brilliant season, broke into the England squad. Obviously not last year. The last few years he's been very good. Had a difficult season, but no one at Bournemouth really did very well last season, didn't really cover themselves in glory. So, and I look at Ryan Fraser as well, another one. He's played together with Wilson. They've got an understanding. The season before where Fraser had probably, I think, second most assists in the season, which was brilliant. So Newcastle, for me, are the ones that are going to surprise people. I think they could really challenge, definitely top half. They could be challenging for 8th, I think. So, Newcastle for me. Let's go on, Kieran. You go next. Who is your dark horse for next season?
Yeah, I was between two here. I think I'm going to probably pick the obvious one, and I'm going to say Leeds. Personally, one of my closest friends is a Leeds fan, so got to see quite a bit of them in the Championship this past season, and it's the way they play. Leeds aren't like another team coming up from the Championship. You would have seen in the FA Cup against Arsenal. In that first half, they blew them away. The way they play it's relentless, and it's the way Bielsa has always set up his teams. They're good defensively now. It's going to be difficult this time around because, again, their top defender last year, Ben White, and is now back with Brighton. So I know that they were interested in 1 or 2 players coming in. But again, it's the way they play. It's often, it doesn't really matter who is subbed into that team, that it just kind of, it's the system. And I think it's going to be one of those where probably very reminiscent of the time when Reading came up and they were excellent in the Championship. I think they got record points that year, and then I think they finished 8th or 9th. And I wouldn't be surprised to see Leeds finish in the top 10 because I think the way they play, it's a tough game, which they're well used to in the Championship, but also it's a very fluid and very exciting attacking style that Bielsa plays. The thing is, I think Rodrigo coming in was an excellent signing for them because really, for me, every time I watched Leeds last year, I used to watch Bamford miss about 3 or 4 open shots on goal. So having Rodrigo come in, he could play both in the wing or even up front. I think it's an excellent signing for them. And again, if he can hit their ground running, there's no reason why Leeds can't finish pretty high up. And they've been linked with a lot of kind of high-profile players as well the last couple of days. So it'd be interesting to see who else they can bring in before the end of the transfer window.
Absolutely. I mean, they've been linked with Draxler, who played for the Champions League finalists, obviously PSG. And that's one of the questions I'm asking this journalist on Saturday because, if Leeds can pull off Draxler, look, Leeds are a club that probably shouldn't have been in the Championship. We can all admit that. As much as we hate Leeds, they should always be in the Premier League. They're one of those clubs where they belong in the Premier League. I hate them, but they belong in the Premier League. But when you have a look at something that we like to call manager pull, that's manager pull.
Yeah.
Not being manager. This is not a bashing at Chelsea. I'm just simply saying, not being Chelsea, probably the best place to live in the whole of the UK if you're a young footballer who wants to live in London. You've got a huge wage. You're playing for one of the best clubs in Europe. Let's be honest. Like, that doesn't matter who the manager is. You're always going to go and choose it. But to move to Leeds, who've just been promoted, who don't have obviously the best team in the league, but to play for a manager like Bielsa, that's manager pull. So anyway, that's a great shout, and I agree with you there. Haas, who's your dark horse for the season?
I'd agree with both of you. I think I was going to say Newcastle, but I completely forgot about Leeds. I think with like Kieran was saying with Leeds, I think their impact on the Premier League will be very similar to the way that Wolves came up. I think they have got an extremely good manager. I mean, I've continuously watched YouTube videos of the way and the style of play that Bielsa plays, and I think he's, to have so many people speak highly of him. I think he's created this sort of epicenter within the team, which there is a culture, there is that love to play for him. It's actually working hard for him, which I think a lot of managers struggle to integrate with all their players, and I think he's been able to do that. Obviously, with Rodrigo signing, I think that's brilliant. No one would have thought that he would go from Valencia and being an international, Spain international, to go to Ellen Road and play for Marcelo Bielsa. So it's I think it's brilliant for Leeds. I think they should be very excited coming into this season. I definitely think they'll break into the top 10. I think they are here to stay for a while, and if they can keep Bielsa, I think he has potentially signed a contract him there for a while. So yeah, definitely. And Newcastle, no, I agree with Hader completely. I think they've also made Ryan Fraser is their signing as well. I think for a free. And they've got Jeff Hendrick from Burnley, so that was a free as well. So look, they're bolstering up their team. I think Newcastle are one of those teams which I would have liked to have seen been taken over by one of the potentially by the Arabs, or I think by the American investors, because I do like Newcastle. I think they're very similar to Leeds, where they have there's a culture behind the football. Everyone is always involved. The fans are so involved in sort of the life around, the city, revolves around the club. And, I think having Brucey there will be interesting, and we'll see how the fans react to it. But I definitely think there are positives coming out of both clubs. So I wouldn't be surprised if both of them make it into the top 10, at least, potentially could be top 8. You never know. Arsenal could have a shock and get relegated. So
yeah, absolutely. Let's move on to best and worst signings. We'll do this together. This is a tough one. There's some very good signings, and it's very difficult to predict who's going to be the worst signing, because what's going to happen is that I'm going to predict someone, and someone's going to save this video, and then when this person does really well, it's going to be obviously thrown in my face. But no, let's think. Okay, best signing, I would say, and I'm going to be a bit biased here, but I think Van der Beek's going to turn out to be a very shrewd signing for Man United. And the reason why I say that, and I don't say this very much, because United haven't made excellent signings over the last 7 years. You could argue that their best signings have actually been the past 2 years. You look at Bruno Fernandes, of course, who, you could technically count him, couldn't you, in this year, because he came in January, but I'm not going to do that because that's cheating. So look, for me, it's going to be Van der Beek, because I just think what he offers United is that crucial element of depth, but also he has the ability to press Pogba and Bruno to start. If Pogba and Bruno's form drops, they're looking around and thinking, oh, it's only Lingard and Pereira. Oli can't physically make changes, but now they've got a player there who could challenge them and even start above them if they're not playing well. I think what Van Beek also offers is that he's got excellent movement off the ball. He's obviously a very intelligent player, but he's a team player, and that's important because Ollie's looking to build a culture at the club. And to build a culture at the club, you have to recruit properly. You have to acquire the players that are in line with your vision as a manager. And I think from all accounts I've spoken to, and Kieran also, we've done a few podcasts, haven't we? I've spoken to James Rowe, who came on the podcast last week, and he was glowing about Van der Beek's mentality and his selflessness for the team. And I think that really need, because we've had bad characters. We've had people like Sanchez who came in for the money, and we've got someone that wants to be there. So I would say Van der Beek. And the worst signing, look, it's difficult to say. I think, there's lots of signings, so you just don't know what's going to happen. But for the money being spent, I think Villa spending nearly 33 million on Ollie Watkins is a risk, if I'm being honest. Because I just think that when you looked at Callum Wilson obviously going to Newcastle for 20, you could have got Josh King for probably less. I just think that spending that much money, we've seen Villa's, I suppose, success with strikers. Ali Samata came in, didn't do anything. Then you had Wesley, obviously had a decent start, but he got injured and unfortunately was out for the season. Villa have a problem at striker. They don't score enough goals. They stayed up purely because Jack Grealish kept them up. So Watkins was excellent for Brentford, by the way. I watched a lot of Brentford last year. He was great. Him and Ben Rama, up front in that front three. I can't remember the other player, but they were excellent together. And I really wanted Brentford to come up, and I'm gutted they didn't. It would have been great with their new stadium, but I just have doubts whether the style of play suits Watkins, because I don't think that Dean Smith plays an offensive style of play. We've seen many times they sit deep. But also, I just think that with that price tag as well and being expected to hit the ground running, that could be tough for him. So I hope he does really well. But for me, I think he could be the worst signing. So we'll start with Kieran Garmate, your best and your worst signing.
Yeah, just on the back of that, the Watkins one, I wanted Brentford to come up because I think he deserves this chance in the Premier League. When they didn't come up, I thought the best kind of options would have been if he went to someone like Leeds, where he got to play in that attacking style. So that was a good shout. For me, in the best it's a difficult one because you have a lot of good players that have come in. It's very hard to kind of go past what Chelsea have done, and it's those top three where you're thinking of Werner, Ziyech, or Havertz. And I just think for the way that Chelsea played last season, that probably the best out of them is probably going to be Kai Havertz, because he does what Chelsea fans want Mason Mount to do. I think he has that class where it's kind of like Bruno, where it just takes a second and he can create a chance. It's kind of the same with Ziyech, but for me, it's just watching Leverkusen. It was watching Kai Havertz. He was that good. You see it when he plays for Germany as well. So that's why I say the best. Now, it's kind of hard when you're basically the highest paid signing, but again, that could change even with Koulibaly coming in for City, or if Sancho came in for United. The worst is, I think this one might surprise a little bit, and I've gone Chelsea again, but I think Ben Chilwell.
Yeah,
I was going to say that.
Yeah, I think he's been good for Leicester, but I've never been. I know a lot of people said before that he's been like one of the better left backs in the league, but I've never really believed it.
Also, Kieran, slim pickings. There aren't many good left backs in the league.
No, there's not.
Like one of the better ones.
Yeah, like I always try and think of if the top teams needed a left back. So think of the likes of Madrid, Barcelona, where they can just go out and get whoever they want around the world. Would they even be interested in Chilwell? I don't think so. I think Chilwell is one of those that Leicester have played a really nice attacking style, that they use their right back and left back. Like, personally, out of the two wing backs, I think Pereira is a better player than Chilwell is. Obviously he's injured now, but what he does is he's more similar to when you see the likes of Robertson and Trent, where he takes on his defender. Chilwell, he has a good cross, you can't take away, but I just think for me, he's more of an above average left back rather than one of those guys that you were saying that could be a potential kind of star in the team. I think obviously it's going to be an upgrade for Chelsea because really Marcus Alonso can't defend. So it's an upgrade, but for the amount of money, I think, what was it, 53 million, something like that he's not a 53 million player for me. Like, if they paid 30 million, I don't think I'd be saying it, but for me, I just think the amount of money and what you would expect to bring in for that money, like when you see players like even what you were saying with Van de Beek coming in for 30 odd million, you see Gabriel going to Arsenal for 27 million. There's better players out there for the money. So that's why I would probably say Chilwell is the worst signing so far.
Yeah, I agree, actually. I think Havertz is going to be, look, it's tough to say, but I think he's going to be absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
And like you speak to people, a lot of them say he's like Özil, but obviously he's a bit bigger. He's that cultured on the ball. You know, one area he might need to work on is his work rate a little bit, but I'm sure that will come with, you know, playing in Lampard's team. But who's your signing of the season, and who's going to be your worst signing of the season, mate?
I have to agree with Kieran. I think Kai Havertz is a brilliant signing. I think for Chelsea, you know, bringing in a player of his stature at such a young age on such a higher contract is not a gamble. Usually with a lot of these, you know, young players, you know, there are only specific players who you would want to spend that sort of money on, and that's, I think, at the moment, Sancho and Havertz, probably the two best youngsters in the world, minus Mbappe. But in terms of their quality and the hype around them, they're two of the best. And you know, I think with Hader, he did the recent podcast with Alan Smith where, yes, there are issues with his tracking back, which is very similar to Ozil. Tracking back has been an issue. And I think that's something which he's going to need to work on, and something that Frank will have to drill into him. But like I said, I think the German league is very different to the Premier League. You have to track back in the Premier League. You have to, the element of support you have to give to defense and midfield is huge. So, you know, he'll have a lot to learn. He's young. And I think it'll be a very exciting prospect. And I think Chelsea fans should be excited. Worst signing, obviously Kieran picked Chilwell. I do want to mention that Kieran Tierney was 25 million and Chilwell's 50.
And but Kieran Tierney's that fee. I think Kieran Tierney's probably the second best fullback, left back behind Robertson. That's how highly I rate him. Definitely. But Kieran Tierney was that fee because he's made of glass.
Yeah, true. But still 25 million, 50 million. That's all I'm going to say. I think Chilwell. Look, I'm not saying he's a bad player. I just think it is a bit of a risk in terms of price, and you know, obviously he's English, so prices shoots up. My worst player, I would say, or the player who I don't think would do well, bit of a shocker, Cedric Suarez. I just don't understand that. I do not get it. The point is, look, we had Pablo Mari who had signed, fair enough, okay. We were looking to potentially offload a couple of defenders. I think Leeds were in for Rob Holding, but the whole Cedric Suarez thing, it just doesn't make any sense to me. It never.
Agent.
Yeah.
That's why.
Exactly, and the whole Sinelli thing with Kieran Trapchin was obviously going on and trying to bring every single one of his players to Arsenal the last couple of weeks. So yeah, pretty much money. That's it. I've never understood it, and I think he's not going to play. He's going to be playing in those FA Cup games and in the Europa League games. I just, even when I think he scored in the game against Norwich where we won 4-0, brilliant. I don't rate him. I think he'll probably be the worst signing. He won't step on the pitch a huge amount. So yeah,
that's interesting. Well, I just want to give one shout out to Adam Lallana, because I think he might be a very true signing if he can keep fit for Brighton. So, guys, make sure you smash the like button and subscribe, because I haven't said that apart from at the beginning. And just let's get as many likes on this video as possible. Let's get this video around to as many Premier League fans as possible, because we're going to be talking about all teams, not just United, not just Arsenal, not just the top six. We're talking about everything, every team, every week. Anyway, let's move on, because I forgot that we were going to talk about the relegation candidates. I just want you to give me three names and one line why, because we're running out of time, guys. But for me, look, it's a tough one, but I think West Ham are going to be in there. After speaking to a West Ham fan yesterday, I just think that they've gone and sold a really, really talented young player. Obviously, it's not the be-all and end-all, but they've sold him for a lot of money, and they're not sure what signings are going to come in. They're not exactly got any strategic plan in place. I think they did well at the end of the season. They've got quality in their team, but I just can't see David Moyes lasting the season because it's just a mess. So West Ham's one of them. Unfortunately, you see the promoted teams go down. I think Leeds will stay up, but I think West Brom will go down. I like Bilic a lot, and I hope that he does well, but I just don't see them having enough quality to stay up, although they did very well in the Championship. And the next team, is Fulham. Again, I think they're looking to, they're close to signing Areola and Tete as well from, I think it's from Lyon, yes. But look, I just think that these relegation teams the promoted teams are step up so big that they find it difficult to bridge that gap between the Premier League and the Championship. And Fulham are one of those that keep on going up and down. So, they're my predictions. Kieran, your three teams and why?
Yeah, so two of mine are the same. So I had Fulham coming 20th, and then I had West Brom at 19th. Now, I like West Brom. They play a little bit of attacking football. I just don't think they have the strength and depth. They have a couple of nice players that at the end of the season probably end up in the Premier League, but I can't see them lasting. Fulham, for me, it kind of screams out of one of those teams that gets relegated pretty soon in the season. And then lastly, I have Palace going down because I think with everything going on now, Zaha is trying to get out of there as quick as he can. He clearly wants out, and really, it seems like where Zaha goes, that's where Palace go. When he plays well, Palace are on form. When he doesn't, they don't. After the restart, Palace were probably one of the worst teams. They Every game that you saw them play, they looked like they didn't care. The players didn't look like a team, and that's not a good sign for it. Usually, when you see that creep into one season, it tends to kind of topple over into the next. So I can't really see anything going past them. But the option that you use at West Ham, they're also a very weak team. I think there's probably about 4 or 5 teams that you'll see kind of battling now for that last spot.
Yeah, I agree. That's a great shout on Palace. I didn't even think about them, and they feel a bit stale, don't they? West Ham are the same, stale, and maybe they need to go down to refresh things again. But who are your 3 candidates for relegation?
I think Villa still have a potential chance of going down. I wouldn't count them out, even though obviously they have invested in certain players, Ollie Watkins and stuff like that. But I still think that there is a potential chance. West Ham, we'll see. I think the main 3 teams that probably would go down are Fulham, West Brom, and I think Villa. I just think Villa even though they survived this season, I think they have probably more of a chance of staying up now that Grealish has stayed. But even still, I don't think he's enough to keep them in the Premier League. I think they still have defensive issues. I think in terms of their squad depth, if Grealish gets injured, they're finished. They're completely finished. But I would say Fulham, West Brom, and Villa.
Yeah, Villa's a good shout. I just think there's 3 worse teams in them, but Villa could easily go down. Like you said, keeping Grealish is massive, and unfortunately for United fans, if Grealish had obviously gone down, I think he'd be a United player right now, but Van der Beek probably wouldn't as well. So, silver linings and all. And I'm a big Grealish fan, but let's move on to top scorer, and then we'll do our match day prediction. But look, the top scorer one's always difficult because so many factors come into it. How the formation of the sides, how attacking the managers are. You also look at their injury records. I'd love to go and say Martial is going to challenge, because if you look at his goals to minutes ratio, it's probably the best in the league. But look, I'm just going to go completely safe here, guys, and I'm just going to say Aubameyang, because he's proven the last few years he's just always going to score goals. It's difficult to say, but he's always going to score. You could probably choose the Liverpool 2, and you could probably go and choose Sterling as well. I just don't trust Aguero's injury record and the rotation of Pep. Although I love Aguero, I think he is one of the greatest strikers ever seen in the Premier League. But I don't think you can look past Aubameyang. He's got his big money in his bank now, 350k a week. Like, he's happy. He's going to score goals. So yeah, I just think Aubameyang, and for Arsenal at the moment, honestly, it's Aubameyang's goals or you're in trouble. So I think he'll step up again. Kieran, give me your top scorer.
Yeah, it's kind of boring. I'm going to say Aubameyang as well. Everything that's gone on with Black Panther, I think it's time that he can continue and be a top scorer. I think when you look at the teams, he's the main guy. If Aubameyang doesn't score, often you see Arsenal having a bit of trouble. So I think that he's kind of the most obvious candidate, because with the other teams you have with Liverpool, where it kind of splits between Mane, Salah. With United, you see it with Bruno, you see it with Martial, Rashford. With Chelsea, you'll see it. Maybe Werner might get most of them, but you'll see like Ziyech, you'll see Havertz kind of come in with a couple. So I think when you look at the kind of top 6 or 7 teams, that the one team that has that kind of out and out kind of goal scorer is Arsenal, and I think that's where Aubameyang comes in. And I would not be surprised to see him score probably 30 goals this season.
In all comps.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree. And what's even there's no point even asking you. You're wearing your arm.
on Kieran's point of him scoring over 30 goals, I only think he will score that if he has the right midfielder behind him.
Yeah.
If they were to get someone like Aouar, who has he is a creative midfielder, but he can play as a deep line midfielder. I think he will get over 30 goals. It really depends on his positioning as well. If we decide to play him out on the left, which is his preferred position, he's still able to score 23 goals in a Premier League season. But having him playing down the middle potentially, he could score more. It really depends on how we gel as a team, personally, I think. But yeah, I mean, I'm a Clark and can't miss out on being a top goal scorer. So yeah, Aubameyang.
Absolutely. I mean, notable mentions probably. Look, Salah could easily do it. Mane could easily do it, and Jamie Vardy again could easily do it. Although I think you might see a drop off from him. I don't know. Look, we said that last season. He went and got the golden boot. But look, Martial will be in there for a shout. Rashford, if he can keep fit, will also
probably have Harry Kane in there if he got.
Yeah, Harry Kane, yeah, of course. I mean, you'll be
it may score like 10 goals in the start of September.
Yeah, exactly. You'll give everyone a head start in August, but and you even honestly, like, Timo Werner, you don't know, because again, the guy scored bucket loads last year. He could easily, with the way that Chelsea want to play, I think he's going to profit. So look, there's some fantastic strikers. Aguero is another one. Fantastic strikers in the Premier League. We're very lucky. It's a great era. And Ralph Jimenez is another one. I'm a massive fan of him. He score goals. He probably won't get to the top, but he'll be up there or thereabouts. Okay, guys, look, this was one of the favorite segments of last season. That was the 3 match day predictions that we do every single week. So we haven't done this for a while, have we, Hassan? This used to be good fun. It was really tight, the table.
I was winning.
Anyway, I don't think you were, mate. COVID ended. So the way it works is that there'll be 3 match days that we'll predict every week. And what we'll do is we'll predict the score and the first scorer. So for a correct score, that would be 1 point. For an exact score, so you guess the exact score line, that's 3 points. And guessing the first goal scorer is 5 points. So without further ado, guys, the fixtures are Fulham versus Arsenal, Liverpool versus Leeds, and Tottenham versus Everton. There's some spicy ones in there. I think the Liverpool Leeds could be potentially an upset. But we'll start with you, Hass. Your beloved Arsenal, the Arsenal, playing against Fulham away at Craven Cottage. I would say that this is probably one of the nicer opening days you could have. And I'm sure you're backing Arsenal, aren't you? And who's your first scorer? Should I even ask, because we know who you're going to choose as the
Yeah, I think it'll be a 3-1. And obviously, it's Aubameyang scoring. Who else?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised at all. Kieran, what are you going?
I have the exact same scoreline: 3-1, and Aubameyang scoring the first goal.
Kieran's an Arsenal supporter now.
Kieran, if you do that, you're never allowed back on this podcast. No, I'm going to go for 3-0 Arsenal, and I'm going to go for Aubameyang as well. I mean, I think it's a relatively straightforward day for Arsenal, and look, if they don't get the 3 points, then that's a problem, isn't it? So let's go on to Liverpool versus Leeds. This one deserves a crowd, doesn't it? This one deserves full Anfield. This one deserves, the Leeds fans there. This one deserves to be box office. It's just such an incredible game for Leeds to be returned to the Premier League with. So, Hass, I'll go with you. Are you going to go for Liverpool, or are you calling an upset?
I'm going to go Liverpool. I think they're just a bit too strong. I think it's a very tough game for Leeds to come into, obviously, at the start of the season. So I think it'll be a 2-0 to Liverpool. And I think Sadio Mane will score first.
Nice one. And Kieran, are you in agreement with the scoreline?
I am, and in relation to the fans being in the stadium, the one game I want that to happen for is when Leeds play against Chelsea, so the Leeds fans can start singing "Stop Crying, Frank Lampard" again. But so that's all I want to hear. But anyway, I think it's going to be 2-1 to Liverpool, but I think Pablo Hernandez scores the first goal for Leeds and maybe makes the Liverpool fans be a little bit worried at the start of the season.
I think that's a great shout. I mean, I just think that when you're looking at the styles of play, it's just going to be gung-ho, isn't it? It's going to be this game could easily be a 3-2 because of the way your first game of the season, defensively, obviously, people are still getting into their groove again, getting match fit. I think potentially could be a big one, but I'm going to go for a 2-0 Liverpool as well. I think people are sleeping on Liverpool. They're still a fantastic side, sadly, but I would say 2-0 to Liverpool, and you can't look past Mo Salah. I think he's going to get the first goal. Okay, guys, final fixture. Tottenham versus Everton. Again, this is an interesting fixture. A lot of promise for both sides going into the season. Hass, who are you going for? You hate Tottenham.
Yeah, I don't like Tottenham, but still, I think it'll be a 2-1 to Everton, and I think Son will score first. I just think Everton they have made some very good signings, and I think I'm not counting Tottenham out. I think they are, you know, under Mourinho, you know, he is still a very good manager. You know, you can't deny that. But I just think Ancelotti's going to pull masterclass here. I think Tottenham just don't have it in them. So yeah, 2-1.
Interesting, very very interesting. Kieran,
Yeah,
do you agree?
I'm not sure because I don't know what to think of Everton just yet, because there's been plenty of years when they've brought in kind of higher profile players and it hasn't really worked out. So for this one, I can't pick a Spurs game with a high score line. So I think it's going to be 1-1, and I think Richarlison scores the first goal.
I completely agree. I'm going for a draw as well. I agree with you. You just can't pick a high scoreline because Jose, apart from that second season where United were flying, and I thought, right, United are back, and then he went and parked the bus at Anfield, killed the momentum. But we were 4-0 FC, weren't we? And I think what you see with Jose traditionally is keep it tight, 1-2-0 wins, 1-0 wins, you know. And so I'm going to go for a draw as well. Look, I'm going to go against some old guys. I'm going to predict Kane to score a goal in August. I think, you know, he's had a long time now to get back into fitness, and I think he's going to have a really good season. You watch the Spurs documentary, you can see his quality. We all know how good Harry Kane is. Again, I keep on saying people are sleeping on, you know, whatever, but I think people are sleeping on the fact that Harry Kane is world class. So it's all about that, I suppose, the creation of chances, how much service is he going to get, and that's the key. But they've still got Steven Bergwijn, remember, a very good player. Yeah. They've got Son, Dele Alli, if he can hit some form. Lo Celso is a good player. So I think Tottenham are going to surprise a few. Okay, guys, that is it for our first episode of the PLT Weekly Show. Thank you very much for joining me, Kieran.
Thank you. It was a good day today.
Absolutely. And Haas, it's great to get you on more. And we'll be here at the same time every week. So we'll be releasing every Friday at midday. And make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. And we'll